Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and today we're diving into a powerful conversation with a very special guest who's helping people plan for their futures in a profound way. And this is a topic that is relatable to all of us, but I, over the last couple of years, have encountered a lot of challenges and stress around the topic that we're going to discuss today. Our guest, Verleana Green-Telusca, is a remarkable attorney specializing in estate planning. And while she'll be joining us during this 12-part series we have coming up on estate planning, today's episode is all about getting to know the woman behind the expertise, from her journey to law to her passion for helping families protect their legacies. Verleana has a story you don't want to miss. We're going to explore what inspired her to enter this field, the challenges she's faced as a Black woman in law, and how she's using her platform to bring essential knowledge to her communities. This is a conversation that touches on much more than just estate planning and elder care. It's about how we can all take steps to secure our futures and care for the ones that we love. So whether you're listening during your morning commute or settling in after a long day, get ready for an insightful and inspiring conversation. Let's unlock Verleana Green-Telusca, her story, her impact, and her journey right here on Unlocking the Club. Verleana D. Green-Telusca is the founder and senior partner of VDG Law Group, which provides high-quality professional legal services to individual clients, families, and small businesses in the areas of estate planning, probate, trust administration, trust litigation, and contract drafting and litigation. Green-Telusca has been recognized by super lawyers as being one of the top attorneys in Northern California under the age of 40, or who's been in practice for 10 years or less. And in 2023, she was recognized by Super Lawyer for being a top attorney in Northern California in probate, trust, and estates. Verleana was awarded the Innovator Award by Powerful Women of the Bay Area in 2015 and has received recognition as a top 100 lawyer by the National Black Lawyers Association for multiple years. Verleana also founded the Estate and Retirement Planning Specialists, a nonprofit organization focusing on educating the public on important issues such as estate planning, probate, elder abuse prevention and detection, and trust administration. Thanks for tuning in as we share some food for thought in a soulful conversation with Verleana Green-Telusca. Verleana, welcome to Unlocking the Club. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Angela, for inviting me. I so appreciate you contacting me so that we could have this conversation and bringing some information to the public. So thank you.
Yeah, I am so very much looking forward to this conversation for a variety of reasons. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as I recently had to undergo some estate planning conversations with my family and with friends of my family who just simply weren't prepared. So looking forward to you being part of our 12-part series as part of National Estate Planning Awareness Week, but also just listening to your story. I heard your story through some of my colleagues and peers in California and the Bay Area specifically, who just said that you are a bad arse attorney doing your thing. And I know we just read your bio, but oftentimes there's so much that is left unsaid in one's bio. What was left out of your bio that our listeners and viewers need to know about who you are and the work that you do?
Well, a lot. That was
Yes.
just a snapshot into my life and who I am professionally. I am a wife. I am a mother of two beautiful children, Victoria and Vivienne, age 7 and 3.
These.
Yes. So I am a busy woman. I love to participate in their school activities, so I volunteer all the time. Currently, I am the African American Family Network Chair for her school, my 7-year-old school. I am a board member to the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce, and that is my passion to help with businesses that are in the Oakland area create wealth and then pass it on to the individuals and organizations that they deem worthy and that they care about.
Mm.
In terms of, oh, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
In
Yeah,
terms
that's a
of
lot.
my upbringing, I grew up in West Oakland with a single mother. And I told a little bit of my story on a separate platform recently. And a lot of people think she's this attorney, she has her own practice. She must have had family members or somebody who knew how to do this, but I didn't. I am the first person in my family to graduate from college.
Wow.
I am the first lawyer in my family, and I am thankful for this journey. I hope that I am a role model for future generations of people coming through my family, coming through my community, who may not think that it's possible to be an attorney, to own their own business because of their current circumstances. So I am thankful for that.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. The first, in many ways, in your family and the impact on your community that has had. I am curious, Verleana, the genesis of the work that we all do, there's some catalyst, some trigger, some life circumstance that happened, whether in our early childhood or later on our journey. And so I'm curious for you, what was the catalyst or the origin story for you being interested in law in general, but specifically estate planning or elder care?
Well, at a very early age, I learned about Thurgood Marshall, the
Mm,
first Black Supreme Court justice, and the work that he did with Brown v. Board of Education and the significant impact it had on Black folks being able to get the same education as everybody else in this country. So I said, wow, lawyers do that? Is that what lawyers do? They're able to make a difference and change laws, and laws trickle down to how we live our everyday lives. So I said, I want to do that. And I thought I was going to be this civil rights attorney creating legislation, and that didn't happen. When I graduated from law school, my grandmother, she passed away. She had dementia, and it was a mess. No one knew what to do. And of course, because I'm the new lawyer in the family, they said, Verleana, why don't you step in and see what you can do? And that's what I did. I stepped in, I helped my dad, I settled my grandmother's affairs. And at that moment, I decided that estate planning was what I wanted to do. I
mm,
said, I don't want other families to go through the same things that I had to go through and try to figure out even some of the basic things. Did my grandmother want to be buried or cremated? Those things could have been resolved and answered through an advanced healthcare directive. What
right.
happens to her personal belongings that she left? We don't want a fight every time that a family member passes away.
Yeah.
So I said, what can I do to prevent this from happening? And so I decided on estate planning.
Wow, I love that, right? It is. So often we have a lot of listeners or viewers who are early in their journey and they're not sure what they want to do and they want to know tomorrow. They want to know exactly what it is that they're going to do, what their long career will look like. And sometimes it just hasn't unfolded yet, but there's a moment and an opportunity. And when you meet that moment, you'll be ready for it. And you were ready for the outpouring and the request that your family had for you to be the one. And I would love to know, Verleana, in that moment when they were asking you to do this, how did it feel being the representative from your family, but also having to kind of be disconnected to a certain extent, I would imagine, as an attorney to make sure that things were going to take place in the right way?
Well, first, you're dealing with the emotion of
Mm,
losing someone that you care about. So it was tough putting on attorney hat and also putting on granddaughter's hat. This was somebody who I loved, who I cared about, who inspired me. So putting on a different hat was a very difficult thing to do. But as my mom would say, sometimes you got to put on your big girl panties, right? And you got to
Yes.
do what needs to be done to handle the business. And that's what I did. It was something that taught me that business does need to be handled, although we have our emotional side. And I deal with a lot of clients who come to me who are very emotional. And it gave me empathy because it prepared me to deal with clients who may be dealing with the loss of a loved one, who may be highly emotional, who may not understand the ins and outs of the legal system and what to do. And I can say I'm empathetic because I was there. Although I'm a trained attorney, I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Trained attorneys, we're not trained in every area of the law, right?
Right. You have to figure it out.
I
You
didn't
don't know
have
everything.
an internship in estate planning. I worked at the city attorney's office at a mid-sized firm doing civil litigation. I did other stuff unrelated to estate planning. So I had no clue what I was doing. I had to figure it out. So but it did provide me with that understanding of how to be empathetic when I do have a client who's come to me and who lost a loved one, and I understand that I have to be gentle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, an attorney's bedside manner, if you will, is incredibly important. It's not just your expertise or your excellence in your craft, but particularly when you're dealing with audiences that aren't familiar with the legal system and haven't been through these processes, that empathy that you were able to apply probably was critical and probably is a major factor in the success that you and your firm were going to have. I was going to ask you that question of like how, if at all, did that early experience with your own family inform and influence your practice? And and you talked about the empathy, would love to hear if there's any other way that that experience that you went through personally and professionally early on in your journey, how it impacted how your philosophy and your approach to this work. But also inside of that, any recommendation that you would have for other attorneys and other family members when they are seeking somebody to work with?
One, we have to be sensitive and understand that someone who is calling you, who is maybe even angry, that it's not about you, it's about your service and what you can do for this particular individual. So it taught me early on not to take things personal. They may not, they may say
Yeah,
things that may make you feel like they don't like you,
yeah,
but they are really dealing with grief.
yeah.
So it taught me a lot about grief and how to handle grief and how to understand when someone is going through the grieving process, you have to tread lightly in terms of how you handle them. So, for example, when we have someone who calls who says, you know what, I need a probate attorney, I just lost a family member, the first thing we say is, I'm sorry for your loss.
Mm,
And what can we do to help you?
mm.
We don't talk about the probate process, what we do, the system, how to get through it, what they're going to have to, the ins and outs. We talk about the loss of that person. And oftentimes, I have clients who want to bring in pictures or the obituary of their lost family member. And I think that's important that you have that space that you're creating when you have a practice like this, where you understand that we're talking about someone's life and it's not just dollars and cents. I think that's also important when we're talking about the estate planning process. I always start off in every single consultation. Why did you decide to get started with estate planning? And tell me a little bit about the individuals who you care about, who you intend to leave your legacy to. Every single meeting. I want to know who you are. I want to know a little bit more about your family. I want to know what motivated you to get started. And most of the time, it starts off with, I lost this person. So I didn't want what happened in that situation to happen to my family or to my children or to whatever it is. I want to make sure I have a plan in place because I want to ensure that my legacy is passed down to the people who I care about in a way that honors who I am.
Yeah. Well, you've talked a little bit about the origin story, right, with your grandmother and stepping in to help the family out in that situation, to where you are now, one of the top 100 lawyers named by so many different publications and organizations. What have you learned about yourself, Verleana, over the course of that journey?
That's a good question. Resilience. Resilience. I've been practicing now 17 years. I've had lots of people working for me, just me. I've had very busy times, particularly when my children were born, and I had to still stay in the game because it was my passion. It's what I wanted to do. I had a lot of people who told me to get out of the practice, to take some time off, just go be a mom and be a wife and, do that sort of thing. And even my husband said, why are you doing this? And I said, it gives me purpose. It's what I like.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is my husband consistently reminds me as I'm practicing, he always says, and this is not to offend non-believers, but he says, you're doing God's work.
Yeah. Yes.
And it taught me how to continue my life's passion despite the ups and downs, the twists and turns, the setbacks, the hardships. It's not an easy thing to be a Black woman in this space. And it's taught me how to be resilient. Everybody, when I go to court, it's so funny. I just had an intern who was working here, an African-American young man. He's going to UC Irvine in the fall. Shout out to Richard Jones III. And he would sit in the hearings. We had hearings at least twice a week, probates or trust litigation matters. And he saw one other Black attorney. That's it.
Yeah.
And I had a case against him.
Oh, wow. The two of you put it head to head.
No other Black attorneys, no other Black judges. And we were in courtrooms in Alameda County, Contra Costa County, Solano County, and San Mateo County. And I was the only Black attorney other than one in a case we had in Alameda County.
Wow. Well, I sense, first and foremost, this work is your joyful purpose. And you talked about what you've learned about yourself is the sense of resilience and certainly underscoring what your life purpose is. But as I was listening to you, I noticed that there was a little bit of emotion in your voice as you were talking about and answering the question. And it really showed up around the setbacks or the obstacles or the hurdles, or people encouraging you to step away from this space. And then absolutely being one of very few people of color, Black lawyers in this space, but Black female lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
Can you deconstruct that a little bit? What was at the core of that emotion that we just witnessed?
I think we go through so much. I think my colleagues were, their experience, just talking to them can be a lot different than mine. The expectation of a Black woman in this space is to fail. That's just what I've seen.
Yeah.
There's no longevity in it for Black women. And what I also see is Black women who are expected to produce in a way that our counterparts are not, but we're also expected to do it for less money, right?
Yeah.
So when we say, hey, listen, my fees are $450 an hour, and I expect a $20,000 retainer. And your colleague, and it's balked at, but your colleague can ask for a $30,000 to $40,000 retainer and charge $500 to $600 an hour, have the same experience or even less. And sometimes it's mind boggling. Like, how is this happening? And bias, unconscious or not,
Yes,
it exists.
it does.
And it is a tough thing. You have to have very thick skin to get
Mhm.
through it.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
people who don't believe you know what you're doing. And I always have to run my resume and say, listen, we're not even on the same level. I have a master's of law in taxation.
Okay.
I have a certificate in estate planning. I'm a certified mediator. Do you
You've done
know?
the work. You've done the work.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
got an A+ in my classes while practicing law.
Yeah.
Listen to who I am and not what you think I am.
Mm. Ooh, that's a word that what that story reminds me of what James Baldwin said in The Fire Next Time. He says something to the effect that the limits of your ambition were thus expected to be set forever. You were born into society which spelled out with brutal clarity and in many ways as possible that you were a worthless human being. You were not expected to aspire to excellence. You were expected to make peace with mediocrity. And I think that that's the sense of like that's the journey that many of us feel no matter what the industry is, no matter how good we are at our craft. As I'm listening to you, I'm reminded so often that people expect you to be happy with the money that we're offering you. So maybe it's not the top of the line or what somebody else will be paid in a different identity, but you should be happy making $300, $400 an hour, right? Like
Right.
that. And you're like, no, like my services and my expertise. We had a guest on recently, Sharon Robustelli, who is a PR expert and strategist. And she said, she has a saying that just because it's easy for me doesn't mean it's easy. And so just because I make this work look good and I have an impact and get results doesn't mean it's easy or that there's no value to my time. Because I'm excellent at what I do means that you should pay me accordingly to my value. And I think that because of how people perceive the bias that exists in the market, particularly around Black and brown women, is that you should accept less than and be happy with it. But that obviously is not the case with you. And how did you get to the point where you're like, no, this is who I am. This is what I command and what I demand.
I think it was the mentorship that I received from other attorneys and other judges who saw my potential. One person in particular, he saw my potential. And the first thing he said to me after he was a professor in my Master's of Law program, and he had practiced in the probate arena. He was a probate judge, retired. He was in the area for years and years and years. And I went to Paris for a study abroad program. So I spent some time in Paris while working. I was a practicing attorney, so running my business. And he saw that I got an A on my exam, both of my classes while I was in Paris. And he's like, how is this possible? You're working, you have the law practice. What's going on? And then I came back and I took his probate procedure class and I got an A+. He said, this is blind grading. I don't even know, how is it possible? And I said, because it is possible. And he said, young, gifted, and Black.
Yes.
And he said, you know what? you can do anything in this profession that you want to do, and you deserve it all. And this is someone who said he was practicing in tax. He then moved on to the bench. Now he charges $900 an hour for his services. Mm-hmm. To everybody in probate, trust, and estates work knows who he is, and they're willing to pay the price for his services because he gets it done.
Yeah.
And he taught me, don't be afraid to ask what you're worth. And if they are not willing to pay, they are not worth your time. Yep. Keep it moving.
Yes. Can you say that one more time for the people in the back?
Keep it moving. Right? And it taught me so much about overcoming fear, not being afraid to fail, not being afraid when people say no. It's okay. People will recognize your excellence. People will recognize who you are. People will recognize your value. So keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah. What we believe with the Dignitas agency, my consulting company, we talk about this all the time, is first, you have to have brand clarity. Like, know who you are and the value you bring. And you have to make sure that you're bringing value, because if you're not bringing value, then you don't have the leverage in those conversations, particularly when you're trying to set your rates or get results. Once you have that brand and you can activate, like, right, your brand in your network, and you have sponsors such as the gentleman that was like, how do you get an A+ in Paris and practicing law at the same time? Like, you have folks that are advocating for you, and you're able to get to the point where you can ask for 100% of what you want 100% of the time. And we all have to ask ourselves in those moments when we're in a negotiation or a conversation, like, when does fear show up and have us like actually underestimate our value and not ask for what we really feel like we deserve? And it sounds like, there was a limiting belief around that, and there was a fear that you were experiencing yourself. Were you fostering this sense of confidence internally, or did it require this conversation with your mentor for you to truly believe that?
I think I always had confidence in who I was, but that the conversations that I had with him really confirmed a lot of what I was feeling. And I had, for example, I charge a consultation fee. So I would have some of my clients who would, particularly people from my community, who would say, you know what, I'm not paying that. I'm not doing that. Okay. Yeah. You are more than welcome to go somewhere else. I appreciate you contacting my firm. I thank you. But these are our practices and our procedures, and this is what I charge. Yeah. So it's confidence in who you are. It's confidence in what value you bring to the table. And it's saying, you know what, if you want an hour of my time to get my expertise about estate planning or probate or trust administration to help your family, then you have to pay for it. I didn't initially. I would have tons of people who would come into my office and say, I want to get started with an estate plan. I'm ready and I'm ready to go. And I would give free consultations, and they'd walk away and then sign up with someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or I would provide them with probate advice on what to do, what would be the legal maneuvers that I would take, go to someone else. And I said, you know what, this doesn't make sense. I am going to make sure that I have consultations as a stream of income, because my expertise and what I bring to the table will actually make a difference. Even if you don't hire me as your attorney, I know I'm going to make a difference for you, for your family moving forward. So that's seeing the value in myself and saying, you know what, I am valuable, I am worth it, and I deserve it.
Well, I sense that, as you talk about this, and even just how you interact with potential clients in that first conversation of asking how they are and what they're looking for, is like you actually see them right? As not just as paying customers, but you see them as human beings, and that humanity brings a lot of intrinsic value. And so the fact that not only in this conversation you care about the person across the table from you, that you're going to treat that very different than just like routinely checking the box, asking questions, and moving on. That initial consultation brings a lot of value, and that's what I find with a lot of those that identify as women or those that identify in Black or brown categories, is that we want to over deliver in any encounter that we have with folks, right? So that you can prove that you are worth the time and the value. Have you sensed that to a certain extent, that you want to make sure in any encounter you have with someone, whether it's at a networking event or if it's a consultation, that you want to over deliver
We
so that they know
always
that
do
you are
that.
worth it? Yeah, always. It's
Absolutely.
exhausting too. It's exhausting, but
It
it's
can be very exhausting
yeah.
because we have to establish that this is excellence. And
Mm.
what we're doing, in some ways, it is exhausting, and we know that others wouldn't necessarily have to do the same thing, because we are trying in this generation to defy those myths and stereotypes that were put on us. We're saying no, that is not what it is. Being an attorney who is fantastic at her craft, that's a Black job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's a Black job.
Right.
One of the many that we're all qualified for.
Exactly. So we continue to be the face of that. We continue to say, you know what, despite what you think, despite all of the stereotypes, that's not what it is. And we continue to move forward to success and be role models. For me, it's my girls. I have 2 girls. So I want them to understand and believe that you can do anything.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
So what would you tell Victoria and Vivian about their upcoming journey? What advice would you give them, as well as our listeners and viewers?
To continue to push forward despite the setbacks, despite lack of individuals who may look like you in whatever space, in whatever journey you choose to take. Continue pushing forward. And I always tell my daughters every day, show them who you are.
Yes.
Show them who you are, not who they think you are, but who you really are. Rise to the top. Understand that you are the best of the best, the brightest. You are beautiful in your skin. Show them who you are. Let them know. So that's what I would tell my viewers. Show people who you are. Let them know your intelligence, your brilliance. Let it shine. Your excellence.
Yes. And that's unlocking the club right there. Because I think so often on our journey, particularly in corporate America, whether it's in the legal profession, whether it's in healthcare, we find there's a club, there's a place that we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to that boardroom. And we think we have to be someone else other than who we are in order to unlock those doors. But what you're saying, show them who you are, and you either deserve to be in that space or you'll create your own space.
And that's exactly what I did. I did for I've worked at large corporations. I've worked at Orrick, and Orrick is one of the biggest law firms in the country. And here in the Bay Area, it's a huge law firm with hundreds of attorneys, probably even thousands worldwide. I worked for Charles Schwab. So I've worked for major corporations, even Robert Half International, doing contracts for them. And what I found is that it just didn't fit who I was. I wanted to be my own brand. I wanted to have my own company so that I could give back to my community in ways that I couldn't with those corporate jobs. I wanted to create a space for attorneys where they could practice in a way that was not only just making money, but giving back to the community. I could practice in a way where I could have colleagues who I actually enjoy being around. I could have a business that could be passed on as a legacy to my children. That was important to me. So if they choose to be attorneys or not, I would love for them to take on the family business, but they definitely will have a job.
They'll definitely have a job. They will have to go to work, I sense. But one of the things you talk about, like you've worked for some major corporations, and when you are the first in your family, and you do have this affiliation with brand name organizations, sometimes there's a little bit of curiosity and pushback when you want to walk away from that, because that looks like it's a holy grail. Why would you leave this good job to go somewhere else or to try something on your own? Did you have to encounter that, and how did you overcome it to make the decision that I'm going to go out on my own?
Oh, absolutely. I started my practice in 2008 at the height of the economic crisis in the US. It was bad. It was horrible. But I said, you know what? They can fire you from your job. They can't fire me from my business. This is mine.
Yeah.
And my mentors, Wendy Takuda is one of my mentors, and she's like a second mom to me. And she told me, she said, Verleana, always make sure you create a business in which you have a board that doesn't vote you off. So create an entity where
Amen
you
to that.
always have power
Yeah.
in a way that no one can take that power from you. And that's what I've done with my business, to make sure that I have a space that I can create for me. And people sometimes they say, well, I want that stability and that income and those benefits. And I said, you can provide that for yourself. Yeah. You can always provide that for yourself if you have value. The reason why someone is hiring you is because they see value in you making them more money than what you're actually making.
Exactly.
So why can't I do that for myself?
On my own. Exactly. And if you're going to get blamed or not get the credit for the work that you're doing, you might as well do your own thing, right? So often when you're working for somebody else, you may have an idea or a vision and you don't get credit for the work that you're actually doing. So it's nice sometimes when you're on your own. And that's the thing that's entrepreneurship has taught me, is if it's to get done, I'm going to get it done and rely on myself for so many different things. But I've learned a lot about myself through that journey. And I sense that you've learned a lot through your journey in law. One of the things that resonates with me when I think about Black women in law is Ketanji Brown Jackson and her journey. And we all saw it, right, on national television, like how she had to navigate all of this negativity and bias that is in the system. But I had a friend that just recently went to hear her speak in New York City. And one of the things that Ketanji mentioned was she had a mentor and advisor that told her, as she was preparing for the hearings, do you want to be a Supreme Court justice or do you want to be right? What she had to recognize in that moment was, like, there's a way to navigate corporate America. And even with your own shingle, there's a way to go get clients and build business and not. Do you want to be right or do you want to build your business? Have you had to make a choice between the two, and what have you learned in those scenarios?
Oh, absolutely. That's the story with anything. Do you want to be right or do you want to get to your goal? Right. And sometimes there's always a fine line between compromising who you are and getting to the goal of where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And I've had to bite my tongue on many occasions for judges who had intrinsic bias because I was a woman, because I was a Black attorney. And I had to say, okay, it's not about me. It's about advocating for this client. Yeah. Right? Or deal with clients who don't see your value, who don't want to pay you. And you have to tread lightly because of the state bar rules that you represent a client unless you get out of the case in a way that is abiding by the rules of professional conduct. We are public servants. Yeah. That's what we do for a living. We can't always, I can't always be Verleana. Sometimes I have to be Attorney Green. in scenarios where I want to just, you know,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
not say the most pleasant things that I could say to
Yeah.
a client, to a judge, to opposing counsel. And it's about control.
Yeah.
It's about poise. And you learn it over time.
Yes.
You learn
You
it over
definitely.
time.
You do. You do. And you learn the time and the place. And what happens is people see you and they're like, Verleana, you were so put together. Like, we never see you sweat. That doesn't mean that you don't have those moments, that you aren't having to bite your tongue, you aren't having to pause, exhale before you speak into the space. But you just learn to prioritize what it is, what your objective is, what your goal is, what the desired outcome that you want to create. And sometimes that means that you have to prioritize getting the business over being right.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
the time. And there's other outlets for it. You know, we have sister circles, we have things that we do outside of the practice. And I tell people all the time, I love what I do. I love being an attorney, but that's not who I am.
Mm.
I am a person who has uh, things that I like doing. For example, I've competed in bodybuilding. That is something that I absolutely love doing as a part of just who I am. It's a passion. I've always wanted to see what I can accomplish, mind, body, and spirit connection. I believe in that. That's more of who I am, not what I do, not
Yeah.
how I make money. I don't make
Yeah.
money necessarily doing that.
Yeah.
It's what I deem as something fun, to know that you don't have to put yourself in a box, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And that is the premise for Unlocking the Club, is we want these conversations to be about who you are and who you've had to be on your journey, and less about what it is that you do. Right. That informs the decisions that you've had to make, and gives us clarity over some of the obstacles or the hurdles that you've had to navigate. But it is, who are you truly as an individual? And what I've learned over the course of our conversation thus far, Verleana, is that you are incredible inspiration to
Oh,
so many of us that is doing some really powerful work. So I appreciate the insight that you shared. And I know that our listeners and viewers are incredibly inspired by your journey as well. We're going to take a little bit of break and come back on the back nine, where we'll get a chance to dive into some more thought-provoking questions about Verleana and find out where she does find that space to rejuvenate and regroup. We'll be right back here on Unlocking the Club with the back nine and our special guest, Verleana. I'm Angela Taylor, your host for the podcast, and it is time for the back nine. So we're going to dive right in and see what new insights we can uncover about our special guest, Verleana Green-Telusca. Are you guys ready? All right, here we go, Verleana, with the first one. I always want to ask our guests, besides your own home, what is the place or the space where you feel safest to be yourself?
ooh, that's a good question. Other than my home, that one I might have to come back to, because that one that's a good thought provoking. Like, where do I feel
Yeah.
absolutely safe
Well,
to
when
be?
do you feel safe? What's present when you do feel safe? And we may have to find something for you to get to. Might be
That
the
may
gym.
be.
Yeah, yeah,
That may be. I would say the gym is one of the places where, that's the funny thing too. When I work out, I don't like to be in the front. It's funny. I did, you know what? My coach, he's probably going to be mad if he hears this. I do not like to be in the spotlight.
Mhm.
I'm in the spotlight a lot in what I do. I speak a lot about estate planning. I've done tons of events. When I am in the gym,
Yeah,
I like to just work out. I like to be in the background. I don't necessarily want everybody to know that I'm even there, particularly on any given day, although I'm very consistent. I don't necessarily have to be that one. Although I like to do, when I'm doing a show, I will come out and I don't even post workouts on social media. You know, people post stuff on
All the time. Yeah.
I don't do that. I've
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
in ever posted
Yeah.
a workout on social media ever. It's not,
Yeah.
I just like to do it because it creates that space for me where I can come in a headscarf, no makeup, hat, whatever, not even match necessarily.
Yeah. And just be, literally just be. You don't have to be on. You can just be present.
And I do, you know what I've only found one moment like that more recently when I decided to be spontaneous with my children.
Okay.
And I took them to Monterey. We went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And I said, you know what? I want to just go to Santa Cruz. And we randomly just spent 4 days in Santa Cruz at this small, tiny hotel on the beach. No makeup, hair is looking a mess. And it was the best time I've had in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I encourage you to find more of those moments because I sense that you have to be the attorney, Verleana D. Green-Telusca, on a regular basis. And there's a lot that comes with that for you. It's important to you because you have your own shingle, but it's important to you because of the clients that you serve as well. And so finding those moments where you can let your hair down, you don't have to be seen, where you don't have to have the makeup on, is a place where you can seek. So definitely, and I think that that's the same for so many of us, right? Like I am an introvert and I speak for a living, and I just need to find the spaces, whether it's sitting on my patio and no one knowing I'm out there, or being in the garden, or I can be in a conversation and interaction with friends and family, and I don't want to have to speak. I don't want to have to start the conversation. I just want to listen and be present. But I think that space, like understanding what that space is and what we require for that space where we feel safe just to be ourselves, as you've told your girls, show up as you are.
I'm going to do that more often. I don't want to say the prayer at every event. Be the person.
Okay. Ask for what you want 100% of the time, girl.
And be the person who speaks at people's birthday parties and MCing it. And no, let me just go and have fun.
Exactly. Ask it, design it into your life. Well, this leads to the next question is, like, I sense that as you're on a journey, you might have been thoughtful at the beginning. Do I want to do estate planning or not as my practice? What was something that previously in your life you entered into with trepidation, but you no longer do? And if you no longer do, what was the catalyst for you being able to get over that hurdle?
Oh, that's a great question. Just new ventures generally. I didn't know I wanted to do estate planning, but it just kind of said, okay, this is what we found that you like, right? And so I also just went full force with becoming an NFL agent. I didn't know what it was going to entail. I didn't know what the cost would be, but I said, you know what, let me just try it out. If it doesn't work, it's okay. And it didn't work out because of the time you have to spend, getting clients, maintaining clients.
Yes.
That is
really, it's having a relationship with this gentleman since he was like a 9th, 10th grader to a certain extent, right?
Right. Yes. And I didn't have time to do both. So you have to make a decision. Same thing with my nonprofit. I said, this is what I want. This is not my first, this estate and retirement specialist was not my first nonprofit. I had another nonprofit. And the funny thing, it came out of me telling my friend he's scary. I was helping him with his nonprofit. He was mentoring kids. And I had a relationship with the Oakland Raiders at the time. And I said, you need to do a big event so you can get the name of your organization out there. And he just was scared. No, it's not the time. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do something that I want to do. So I started an organization called Playing and Dancing Full Out. And that organization awarded Bay Area youth with just recognition mostly, and just provided a safe space for kids who were in the inner city to be themselves. And I had a dream of opening up a facility where kids could come and play and dance full out.
That's awesome.
And I said, okay, we need to do something to get the name out there. So I just said, you know what? We're going to do a 501c3 so we can get sponsorship money. And we're going to have an event at the Raiders sports facility. It was in Alameda at the time. And we did. Within
awesome.
Like 6 months or less, with the help of my mom, we did the paperwork to start a nonprofit, held an event with over 200 people in attendance at the Raiders training facility in Alameda. And I had no trepidation about it because I had started a law practice. I had been an NFL agent. I had did all these
You
other
can do this. You know how to do this. Yeah. Exactly. Well, so just that story in and of itself says that you can do anything that you put your mind to. What then is your superpower?
Having fear and doing it anyway.
Oh, wow. Ooh. Tell me more. Having fear and doing it anyway.
I get scared about a lot of different things. I mean, when we go through life, we get to the point where fear, it comes up. Fear of, in this present journey, I was fearful of taking on certain responsibilities because the family obligation. So I didn't want to take on another board position. I didn't want to take on other things that were going on, but I said, you know what, I really want to do this. So I didn't want to take on being the chair to my daughter's African American network at her school. But I said, you know what, I can see myself making a difference in this position. And of course, we're always scared about what other people may think or say or feel about what you're doing. But what I've realized, other people aren't stepping up, right?
Yeah.
Why? They're scared too.
Yeah.
But the difference is they're scared and not doing anything. I can be scared and do it anyway. Yes. And I've learned that with every single thing that I've done, every single thing that I've accomplished in my life. And I have so many people who will come up to me and say, I wanted to do that. I want to do that. I imagine myself doing that, whether it's, do competitions for, just by the way, I do competitions. I won the wellness category. That's a category in bodybuilding. I've also won bikini competitions, and they'll say, I want to do that. You can do that. You can do it. Or I want to be an attorney. You can do that. I want to start a nonprofit. You can do that.
Well, but there's more to it than just you can do it. Like what's the formula for you can do it that you've been able to consistently go back to, replicate, and leverage?
I mean, it's hard to, I think, just like I said, it's having that fear, doing it anyway, because I guess for me, having humble beginnings was a great thing. Because I always think I have nothing to lose.
Yes.
That's
it. See, there's no fear of failure because you have nothing to lose. I think that sometimes just do it, right? And for many of us that are doers, that's what makes sense to us. It's like Michael Jordan or the great athletes. They're horrible coaches because they can't explain how to do a complex move. And so for those doers, it's difficult to explain, how can I just do something and get over the fear? But it gets to the core of it is maybe that fear of failure is not a factor for you. And so for those folks that just aren't willing or haven't found a way to just do something, is what's at the core of that? Is it the fear of failure? Is it the perfectionism? Right. We had a guest that was said that perfection is painful, right? If you are a perfectionist, it is really expensive. Is what Shantara Harvey said.
You will never get anything done. The practice of law, for you to be good at what you do as an attorney, you have to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You have to fail. Yeah. You have to be horrible at it.
Yeah.
You have to be horrible at what you do.
Yeah.
In order to be great at what you do.
Exactly.
You have to be willing to fail forward. And I always talk about my story, particularly when it comes to the bar. I failed 3 times.
Mm.
3 times. Imagine
Wow.
if I would have said, oh, I failed. It's not for me.
Yeah, yeah. Or that you can even share the story. How many of us would not even share the story of failing because we feel that that's going to people like, oh, I wouldn't hire her as an attorney. She failed the bar 3 times, right? I think that your willingness to embrace failure is one of your superpowers as well. Like it's the thing that
Ooh,
shows up so
yes.
often and allows you to lock in and to be able to do some really important things. I think it's a beautiful thing and a lesson for us all to learn is the fear of failure isn't a bad thing. It's understanding what's at the root of that, which is where the opportunity lies. There's also opportunities that lie, Verleana, in storytelling. And so when you think about this world that we're currently living in and the spaces that you navigate, what is a story that needs to be told?
That we all carry things personally. And I think you hit on it earlier when we talked about the fact that we're all human. We go through a lot, we wear it well. But I can say for me, losing both of my parents in the last 5 years, losing an uncle in the last 5 years, giving birth to 2 children within a year of losing both of my parents,
Wow.
taking care of an aunt who has a mental disability coupled with stage 4 pancreatic cancer
Oh, wow.
has been a lot. But I still manage to get up every day and proceed because I know I have faith and I know how to reach out for help.
Mm, yes.
I
Yes.
cannot, as much as many superpowers I have, I am human and I feel the weight of the world. Therapy is important. It is not saying that you're a bad person, you can't handle it. It's a part of life.
Yeah.
And it's a part of what successful people actually do.
Yes. They
We
invest in themselves. They invest
we
in themselves.
invest in ourselves.
Mhm.
We understand that we cannot do it alone,
Yeah.
and we seek help when we need it. So
Yeah.
I think being authentic and actually telling your story and saying this is what it is, because many people there, they said, you said that, you really said what
All
you're
of that.
going through,
Hmm.
and you really said where you came from. You really said that. So many people hide, they have a mask on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's exhausting.
Yes. Yes.
Being who you are, not being scared to share your story, because one, it might help someone else.
Yeah.
And two, it helps you. It helps you get over and get through all of those emotional things that you may be carrying.
Yeah.
You're able to say, you know what? That's not what I've been through. That's not who I am. I'm sorry. That's what I've been through. That's not who I am. This is
Yeah.
who I am. I go through all of these things, but look at what I bring to the table. Look at what I've overcome. And you can do that too.
Yes. That that right there is a bar, is a nugget, whatever phrase you want to be able to use, is really powerful perspective for folks to know. And it's the formula for unlocking the club. My formula for unlocking the club is first to unlock your truth. Is so rarely do we, particularly as Black women, take the time to pause and really unlock our truth. What's going well for us, what's not, what's challenging for us, how we're feeling, all those different things, because oftentimes we're serving so many different people in our homes and at work. And so we don't take the time to unlock our truth of what's really happening for us because we feel like we have to be a certain way and people expect us to show up a certain way. And then when you unlock your truth, and you share your story, it does exactly what Verleana just mentioned. First, it could be helpful for others. There might be somebody else that's having a very similar circumstance, but thinks that they're alone and think it's their fault and doesn't realize it's the system or it's the structure that may be impacting their journey. But it also is incredibly cathartic for us to be able to unpack all of that weight that we've been carrying on our own and maybe discover the need to be able to ask for help, to give ourselves the grace to invest in ourselves and ask for help. And when we do that, we reclaim our power. That's the formula for unlocking the club, folks. It's unlock your truth, share your story, and reclaim your power. And Verleana just did an amazing job of giving you a firsthand account for how that has worked in her life. And I appreciate you for doing that. And I wonder, so it seems like you've been able to navigate the good and the bad,
Right.
Verleana, and gracefully. But when you're at your best, however you define being at your best, what's true for you?
Ooh, what's true for me when I'm at my best, I am free. I'm confident. I am realizing that no matter what steps, even baby steps that I'm taking, it's really on my way to my vision. I love creating visions of what I want my life to look like.
Yeah.
And when I know, even in the point of failing, that I'm still going towards that vision, I'm at my best no matter what. Even if I do something wrong, make a mistake, it's not going well, but I am doing something that's leading to my vision, I'm at my best. When I'm being complacent, and there are moments where I am complacent and I don't think I can do something, for example, my husband and I, we decided we were going to have stretch goals. And one of those stretch goals was purchasing another home. We owned a property and it was great. We were comfortable. Everything was going great. And we said, you know what, this is good, but we want to stretch ourselves and do something more. And it was one of the hardest things that we were so uncomfortable. We had to pay two mortgages until we rented out our other house. People told us, sell the other place. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You crazy
Yeah.
people. And we said, we don't want to do that. We want to stretch ourselves because our vision has always been to create generational wealth. And
Yep.
we wanted property ownership as a way of creating that generational wealth. And my husband is big. I mean, that's how we came together. Neither of us had owned property. Neither one of us families had owned property. So we said, we are going to stretch ourselves. And I knew we were doing something that was creating the vision that we had for our family. Although it was hard, it was grueling. At times, we both wanted to quit, but we didn't because we knew that this is our vision. This is
Yeah.
our vision for our family, for our girls, for our children.
Yeah.
And our future selves will thank us.
Absolutely.
Whenever I'm on that path, that's when I'm at my best, despite what it may look like here, what it may look like, these dealings, that we're the everyday
Yeah.
things that we're going through, even though it looks no.
Well, what we know for sure is that as humans and leaders, when we know what our North Star is, when
Mhm.
we encounter different obstacles or hurdles, we're not going to stop. But if you don't know that your vision was to hold multiple properties and create generational wealth, if you didn't know that was your vision, the first obstacle you met, you would have taken the advice of your peers and sold it right away or sold one of the properties. But I think another really important point that Verleana is making is know what your vision is, your goal, what is your North Star in life, because that is going to fuel you through those times where you do fail or you fall or you don't succeed. And it changes over time. So I think that's really important. And curious, Verleana, like you're a high achiever. Like you like excellence, right? Which is another conversation altogether. Of is that a
Right.
good thing or not?
Oh,
What brings
right.
you joy? What brings you joy in life?
Family.
Mm.
It always has been truly what brings me joy. I have a public persona. And I love my public persona too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my family, even my siblings, my nieces, my nephew, my husband, my children, they bring me joy. Even when my parents, they didn't have all the things, and we struggle financially, but at the end of the day, that's what brought me joy.
Yeah.
Every year I had two separate Thanksgivings, two separate Christmases, one with my mom, one with my dad.
Mm.
Easter, all of the holidays, we create the space so that family can enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what brings me joy. My
Mm.
daughters, they know that whatever day it is, whatever birthday, whatever holiday it is, they are waiting for that day. Who are we having over, mommy? Who's coming?
That's
Auntie
great.
who? Auntie,
Great.
they
Yeah.
know family. It just is. One of my mentors, John Burris, he would always tell me when I wanted to be married, I said, oh, I want to be married. I want all this stuff. And he told me, he said, it's a beautiful thing. It's not the practice of law, because the practice of law is not your life. That's
Mm.
not your real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
That's great
family,
advice.
your
Yeah.
family, your friends, the people who love you, that's real life.
Yeah, that's real. That's real right there. And it reminds me, I think I read a book, I want to say it's called Trust, a couple of years ago. And the one of the characters had a statement that really resonated with me. And they were somebody that wanted their own privacy. And he said that in order to have privacy, you had to curate your own public persona. You have to be really intentional about what that persona is. What are your boundaries? What are you willing to give, and what aren't you willing to give? And as soon as you can set those boundaries, then you can have that private persona that some of us seek, for sure. And so, as you focus on family and then the holidays, and just creating a beautiful future for your daughters, Vivian and Victoria, I'm curious, what would you do? And I sense that there's not a lot that you don't do based on your conversation and the things that you're willing to lean in and to try. But what is one thing you would do if you were braver?
Mm. Wow.
Mhm. Let's get down to it. Come on, roll up the sleeves. Let's get to it.
Roll up the sleeves.
Mhm.
Uh, if I were braver, I would probably write my book. I have two books. One is about my life generally, and the second is about wealth and estate planning and what I do. And I would speak and tour the world and talk about how Black families can and do create wealth.
I love it. And I look forward to that moment you step into how brave and courageous you've always been, and that you choose to be in that moment where you do write those books and tour the world and share your message with others. For sure. Well, here, like, we can go on and on and on. I have so many questions for you, and I appreciate all the insights and perspectives that you shared with us, Verleana. Where can our listeners or viewers find you? And are there any special projects or events that you have going on?
Well, I don't have any upcoming. I just did several speaking engagements, but you can find me at www.vdglaw, V as in victory, D as in daughter, G as in girl, law.com. And, I'm in the Bay Area. My phone number, 510-479-0768. We serve the Bay Area, but we also serve the entire state of California. So if there are viewers out there looking for estate planning, probate, trust administration, or trust litigation services, please contact us. We also handle contract review and drafting for small businesses and individuals. So please contact us if you're looking to have any of those services completed.
Fantastic. And a plug for our upcoming series on estate planning and elder care, where Verleana is going to be one of our key experts, sharing some really important information for you about the process and the journey. We're looking forward. We'll launch that in a couple of weeks. And we wanted to give you a chance to get to know the amazing person behind the content that you will have a chance to interact with during that 12-part series on estate planning and elder care. And Verleana, you dropped so many nuggets. This was a fantastic interaction and conversation. I appreciate your time and appreciate the work that you're doing in our communities to make sure that people can create a legacy of wealth for their family and their loved ones. And I look forward to being in conversation with you on upcoming episodes as we really dig into the ins and outs of estate planning and elder care. And you give us some of your key tips that can have an impact on all of our futures. So thank you for joining us today on Unlocking the Club.
Thank you, Angela. Oh, I forgot one thing. I will be featured on RTV. It's a local Bay Area channel here in California. So look out for In the Community with Kathy Adams featuring me and estate planning on RTV, Bay Area channel.
Awesome. We will definitely check that out and make sure we have that in the show notes so people know where to find you. And this was it for another episode of Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor. So grateful to our special guest today and sharing some really valuable nuggets about what her journey was like. And what I heard, the message that I took away is be yourself. Find out who you are, be intentional and do it on purpose, and then show up powerfully inside of that identity on a regular basis. People will love it. They'll love you. And more importantly, you'll love yourself and find out what your purpose is so that you can live that joyful purpose in your life as well. Once again, thank each and every one of you for joining us here on Unlocking the Club. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube where we have our videos and or your podcast platform of your choice. Tell a friend to bring a friend and join us next time here on Unlocking the Club. Until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.